there good reason, do you think, to have concern about plans for Liberty State Park for perhaps a hotel, a restaurant, a concert venue, an amusement park? Do you think, Governor Whitman?
Well, you know, it was under my administration that we fought to get the whole of Ellis Island as recognized as New Jersey property, New Jersey land, not because we want to do a land grab, but because it was so important to the history of our country, to the founding of our country, the way immigrants came through there. And the railroad station at Liberty State Park is an integral part of that. And while I understand the need for money and the need that times change, I think we have an obligation to the country, not just to the state, but to the country, to manage that well. And those buildings, frankly, we had one of my inaugural events, we had it in one of those railroad stations. They're wonderful venues. You can do things there, and I could see perhaps a tasteful theater or something for events, but a hotel, amusement park, charging people for all of that, that wasn't the intent when we moved forward to get that land as declared ours.
Do you see it that way?
I think part of the major problem is that there's not as much transparency as there should be. We don't know what anyone is really planning. It hasn't come down to that. I mean, what a concern is a passive recreation at Liberty State Park that everyone values. We don't want to turn it into Coney Island. I mean, the fact of the matter is transparency would go a long way to relieving some of the concerns that people have. Tell people what you have in mind, and then we'll debate it.
What do you understand about the spirit and the intent of Liberty State Park when it came to be some nearly 40 years ago?
Well, I mean, it was, again, to recognize a place that was very integral to our history as a nation. And it was where the immigrants first saw the United States, really first set foot on the land. And to maintain that as it was so people can experience that, that's the way you give a sense of history and pass it on to generations, which I happen to think is enormously important.
So would there be real concern?
Part of the dilemma is that the record of the last couple of years in New Jersey in terms of environmental concerns is horrendous. I mean, the violation of the integrity of the Pinelands Plan is just something that's off the charts. Putting pipelines all across the state is being oblivious to the significance of preserving as little open space as we have. And Liberty State Park is unique in many senses.
But it is 1,200 acres, and this proposed plan would only put aside maybe some 38 of those 1,200 for some kind of development.
Putting in a pipeline results in development. Putting in some development in some area generates other development. And before you know it, you've gobbled up all the open space because of economics.
Governor Christie has called for the Meadowlands Regional Commission to become part of the planning process. Is that a good idea, do you think, even though it said that the Department of Environmental Protection would have the final say?
Governor Florio, Governor Kane, and I have already agreed to sign a letter asking the governor not to sign this bill. The citizens of this state vote overwhelmingly again and again to preserve open space, even if it means taxing themselves more. They understand the importance for their quality of life. The public needs to understand what's happening incrementally and what the big impact is overall as you keep mounting these little bits of encroachment on top of another little bit of encroachment, and what the ultimate impact can be, so that they can stand up and say, no, we do not want this. We want to preserve our quality of life, and that includes open space.
Well, certainly the environmentalists are making that viewpoint well known. Do you think that this will be a long, drawn-out battle before there's a final decision?
I think a lot depends upon election outcomes. We have a gubernatorial election coming up before too long. And if we have leaders on both sides who are willing to go out and explain the complexities of these problems, you can build a consensus getting people engaged.
Will people get engaged, or will this be a long process in the courts?
I think people will get engaged, I really do. They've shown that ability in the past. It's going to be up to a lot of the thought leaders to do, as Governor Florio says, to make it relevant to people. I've met with a number of the groups and said, you've got to make people understand how it affects them, how their water bills will go up if we have to put in more water purification systems because we've paved over the land or we've allowed encroachment on streams and therefore nature can't do what it's always done.
Well, Liberty State Park certainly is one of New Jersey's most valuable resources and a very, very valuable piece of real estate. Governors, thank you very much for sharing your views.
Thank you.
Thank you.